I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it, and that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. This podcast is brought to you by Jarhead Diagnostics. Jarhead Diagnostics manufactures in-house diagnostic equipment and storage solutions, as well as distributes for companies like Pico, ATS, and TopDon. One of my favorite tools that I've bought from Brandon and Jarhead Diag is the case for the U-Scope. If you don't have a U-Scope, you probably should, but if you have one, you got to get one of these 3D printed cases, has a magnet on it, has a full-size BNC lead that you can connect to, and it gets rid of the weak point of that scope, which is the mini BNC connection, which is pretty fragile. This case makes this thing nice and secure and makes it an even better tool than it was. So check out jarheaddiag.com. The link is in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. We have got Auto Rescue Tools and Isaac Rodell as a sponsor for this podcast. Hey guys, if you're looking for programming laptops, you want the laptop set up ready to go for programming control modules on vehicles, you need key cutting equipment, you need diagnostic tools, Isaac is your guy. Has all that stuff available for purchase, and the support that he offers along with the purchase has been outstanding. I bought some stuff from him in the past. I got my Dolphin key cutting tool from him several years back. And again, the support has been phenomenal. Helped me out along the way with anything additional I needed to make it work for me. Also, for the month of June 2023, they've got Autel updates for sale. So make sure to check that out as well. Again, that's autorescuetools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be the host for today's show. Joining me on the show today is Jeff Barnes. Jeff is from Oklahoma. I met Jeff at ASTE in person. I think I interacted with him once or twice prior to that, but Jeff has been a technician for quite a while. I think we're about the same age, actually. And what we're going to talk about today is a number of different topics within
the automotive industry. We'll touch on some flat rate stuff. He's going to talk about ADAS things and how his shop has been adopting this, trying to get ahead of the game with ADAS, but also just how expanding out and getting to know people in the industry can really broaden your horizons, can make you as a person, as a technician, as a shop better by getting to know what everybody else out there is doing, expanding out, networking, how important this stuff is. And he kind of shares his story on where he was and how he got to where he's at, and the future for his shop. So it's a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Jeff. So with that out of the way, let's jump right in.
How's it going, Jeff? How's your day? How's your week going?
Hanging in there. I just got back from a 1 week vacation. I only ever take 1 week a year. We were in Galveston, Texas.
Okay.
And that's the second time I've gone on vacation as a foreman and left the technicians here on their own.
Okay.
So, normally I expect it to get back to a mess on my hands. Last time they had done keys and an ignition switch on a Chrysler Pacifica. And if you know anything about those, they're an odd breed.
Sure.
So I had a non-running, non-movable car when I got back. This time, everything went well. They all hit about 40 hours, which we've been kind of slow, so that's pretty good.
Okay.
So that was nice.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a Facebook page solely dedicated to something about the anti-theft system with the Pacifica.
Really?
So you can't get the pin through the OBD. You can't pull the pin with traditional methods, and I think that's the whole group is they just post that over and over again as really stupid. But I don't know if anybody else has seen that out there.
Well, that car actually came in. I didn't go looking for that because I don't really want anything to do with Pacificas on my Facebook page. So I feel like people would unfriend me or something if they saw that. But
sure.
Yeah, I got back to it and I ended up fixing it. There's a locksmith local that got me the pin code, and I was able to finish it. And
okay,
it was an intermittent crank nose start with the key light flashing or whatever. And I had noticed on that car, there was a phone mount holder laying in the floorboard, in the passenger floorboard, that like plugs in and charges your phone. I didn't think anything of it. So, I had codes in there for it not reading the key. So I was like, these are pretty straightforward. So, we put a new ignition switch or halo or whatever in there, and it fixed it. And then the guy left, and about 2 hours later, he comes back and he's pissed. And he's like, this thing's doing the exact same thing as it was doing before. And I'm like, well, you just have to leave it with me because I'm here now. I'll catch it. And I could not get it to mess up. And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, hold on a minute. And I mounted that phone bracket back up there where he had it, and I put our shop phone that we have for test drives and stuff. I put it up there and let it start charging, and sure enough, it would interrupt the signal just enough that car would crank no start. Okay. And he claimed said, no, I don't believe you. And I said, just take that thing and move it to the other side of the dash and plug it in and charge your phone over there. And then he never called back, so I'm assuming everything's okay now. But yeah, I got it to do it multiple times. I thought it was funny. So
that's nuts. You run into that weird stuff every once in a while like that, where there's no good tests for that. Outside of moving it, right? But I don't think Pico has an attachment,
right? Yeah,
something like that. It makes me think of, I've seen it a lot in the last couple of years where they'll have the bedazzled ring that goes around where you put your key, and that makes sense, right? That's blocking the signal between the transponder and the halo. But just having a phone that close, I don't know if I would have thought of that.
Only when it was charging. So a fully charged phone, it wouldn't do it. But when it went into charge mode, it was one of those I don't know, it's like a charging pad, so it doesn't plug into your phone. So it charges it through the back of the wireless. Yes, yeah.
And that makes even more sense.
What really gave it off to me is that he had picked his phone up to call us and was mad, and then his car started. And so,
of course.
So I was like, hold on a minute, because he said he went in somewhere to get, food or something, and came out and his car wouldn't start. And as soon as he picked up the phone to call us, now it's starting, but I'm still mad, So, but we got it fixed. So.
And if that's not the best example, like sometimes you got to think outside of the box on stuff like this. I mean, I've had situations like that so many times throughout my career, even with low tech stuff. I remember I had an Isuzu that was towed in one time. It was very early in my career, and they said the transmission went out on them. It just won't move anymore. I put it in gear and it won't move. Okay. And so I get this ticket and I go out there and I'm looking at it, and they were right. You put it into gear and you can rev the engine and it doesn't move. Right. Well, it had a shifter in the center console. It wasn't on the floor. It was like in the center console for the transfer case. Right. And you could put it into, I think it was two high, 4 high, 4 low, neutral was the other position. Well, it had just been pushed slightly into neutral, and I just happened to look down, I grabbed it, and I put it into drive. Thing went into gear and it moved. And so I talked to the service manager. I was like, yeah, the thing was just in neutral. And we were talking to the guys like, I didn't put it in neutral. I was just in the grocery store. I came out and it wouldn't move. And we're talking to him. And like you said, noticing things, he's got a big, blanket in the back of this thing, and he had a dog. You could tell there was a dog in there, right? There's dog hair everywhere. There's slobber on the windows. People have dogs, understand that. And so we're like, hey, did you leave your dog in there by chance? He's like, yeah, the dog was in there. I was like, well, it's possible maybe this dog pushed this thing into neutral. And we never saw the car again. But yeah, just sometimes you have to get away from your normal thought process in order to fix these cars.
Right, it's almost like you have to get into the mind of the customer and how they're going to deal with it, because I guarantee the first thing he did was start the car and then reach over and grab the phone charger and put it back up where it was. And then he's been sitting in the waiting room for an hour, while we finished it up, and his phone's dying. And so now he's going to charge it. The first place he stops, it doesn't start. So, yeah, there's and animals. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had to deal with, other than the dog chewing the shift handle or the emergency brake handle up to where it doesn't work anymore. But
sure. Yeah. You get the rodents under the hood, but
yeah,
that'll create some interesting problems for sure. Yeah. Going back to what you were originally saying, taking time off when you're kind of maybe not the lead guy, but you have an important role with the shop, and a lot of specific jobs go just to you. Taking time off can be a burden, like you said, because going back and then you're like, what's going to be waiting for me? Like, what backlog of vehicles do I have to sort through? You're almost dreading going back more than you would normally from a vacation. I remember that from Firestone. That was kind of how it went for me.
Yeah. I've been working on training these guys for the last 2 years, and I just trusted them, they have a key to my box, and the shop's got their own. We got 2 scan tools, and one's just a Veris Heritage, so it's old, but it works. You got to leave it plugged in, but it works. They know we also have certain processes and procedures put in place to help them along when I'm not here, and even when I am here, I don't help them with every ticket, and I don't see every ticket. And so there are some that slip through the cracks, but they still got to learn. They've still got to do things on their own. And unfortunately, sometimes, it makes its way back to the customer. But I would say the rate, that we have comebacks at is extremely low. So, in fact, so far this week, now it's only, Tuesday, but I haven't had anything come back from last week yet. So that's
fantastic.
Good. And I did have a guy, he's young, early 20s. He diagnosed a intermittent crank sensor on it was a 2010 Jeep, the ones that are common for failure. When they get hot, they go open. He did that on his own. So, I'm sure he just used the guided functions on the Snap-on scope, but still, I mean, that's how I started out anyway. So I was really proud of him for that. That was going out on a limb and not just, slamming a crank sensor in it for a code. So, and at first he couldn't catch it. He could not catch it, test drove it, let it hot, heat soak over lunch, and he could not catch that sensor failing. And so they actually let the customer take the car back, because we refuse to sell somebody something that we don't think they need. So, sure enough, that afternoon, the customer called back, said it did it again. I let it cool off. I'm bringing it in right now. And he brought it in the heat of the afternoon, and he caught it. It actually crank no start, and he caught it. So, and they put a factory sensor in, so I was happy for that too.
Yeah, that makes a difference too. I remember learning that lesson. It's a vivid memory for me. Is I was younger, working at a shop, and it was two guys. They were driving an old Dodge Caravan, and it stalled while they were going through our town. They just happened to be going through our town, going somewhere else. Got it towed here, wouldn't start, right? And after it got off the tow truck, of course, it fired right up. And the owner of the shop that I worked at had a very sales first mindset, profit mindset, right? Yep. So nothing leaves without a bill. Like, that doesn't happen. And so I'm going over it. There's no codes. It starts up every time. We go through the whole thing. And I was like, I have nothing to offer you. Like, I could throw a dart at a dartboard, and I probably have a better chance of making the right call here. And he's like, okay, well, of all things now, he sells them a fuel filter. And I think it was because the fuel filter looked like it was old, but I knew at the time, I was pretty young, I was very inexperienced, but I knew at the time, like, that's not going to cause it not to start. Like, it's not going to do it, right? Maybe like low power or something, but it's not going to cause it not to start. But that's what he sold them. And so that's what I put on. And so we sent it out the door. 2 miles down the road, of course, the thing stalls again. And they're back, and they're super pissed off. Gets towed back to us, of course. And then it starts right up again. So we're in the exact same position, but now we own this thing. We're married to it because we charged them money to put a part on there. Yeah. Now we're married to this thing, and it was a whole big deal. And I think it ended up being a cam or a crank sensor, but it just turned into a disaster because they sold them something just to sell them something. Right. And I always remember that now when I'm dealing with intermittents. I'd rather just not accept payment or avoid it all completely, but not accept payment for anything. Just be like, well, call me when it's acting up, and then we'll talk. Then I'll charge you something. Right.
Yeah. Cause you don't want to waste money on something that wasn't necessary. And then that's, but that's how that is. Yeah. I've been in a shop like that. Yep. Where the advisors are almost looking over your shoulder, and then they've got something sold before you've even finished the inspection on the car, and you're like, hold on now, the transmission's out on this car, right? And they're like, oh crap, we sold timing belt and water pump and spark plugs, and I'm like, well, I didn't have that written on there yet. So and I'm a jerk about it too when I see them doing that. Like, even like in school, I'm not like super smart, but in this state, sometimes the people don't take school seriously, and I'm sure it's that way everywhere.
What state are you in? Is it
Oklahoma?
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying anything bad about Oklahoma, but there's a lot of apathy for learning and stuff around here, and so when I would see kids, copying off my work, I would purposefully put down the wrong answers, and then right before I turned it in, I would change them all, and the look on their face, when they got their test back was priceless. It was worth it. So, but I don't like that, and I've been in a shop like that where it was like, let's just get something sold, and then we'll just deal with it, if we have to. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not a good practice. Right. So, you're going to get burned.
Absolutely not.
But,
so the shop you're at now, how long you been there, and how long have you been in the role that you're doing now?
I've been here 8 years. I took a 6-month hiatus. my father-in-law actually owns a shop. That's where I started at, and he had lost his lead technician, or his main technician that he'd had for like 16 or 17 years, and that guy just kind of partially retired. He had a farm, and that he had cows and stuff to take care of, and then I remember I guess his thumbs wore out. Like he was gonna have to have surgery on his thumbs, and then he was probably mid-50s and been doing it most of his life, and so he was ready, and so he went like 7 months without a technician. I mean, he had one there, but like a junior tech there, but he went 7 months without a technician and actually was working on cars himself again, and he had not been an actual tech in the shop since the mid-90s, so or early 2000s. So I took a 6-month hiatus and went over there. I thought, we'll give it another shot, because I'd worked for him multiple times, and it's just working for family is just not. It's doable for some people, but most people it's not doable for. And I gave it a shot, and I made good money. I watched the other technicians starve for work. I did not like that. I needed the money, but I didn't agree with that. And then, it's just lack of work mostly. And I'm sure a lot of that was caused by, being shorthanded for so long. But I was over there, and I've been there about 3 months, I guess. So I've been here 5 years, and then I went over there. And I'd been there for about 3 months, and the other technician went on vacation. It was like a Tuesday night. He went on vacation, and about 7:30 or 8 o'clock that night, I got a phone call that my mom had died on a cruise ship. So my parents had went on a cruise, and the other tech wasn't going to be back for a week. So I was pretty much in that shop by myself. I actually had my best week that week, but it was not good. And so, I decided then that I needed a change, and I kind of wanted to pursue the foreman position. And over there, I knew that wasn't going to be able to happen. I was always going to be a flat rate tech, because they had to have somebody to fix the cars, and they didn't have anybody. And I thought, this is going to take too long to build it up. So I got back with my old boss here at this shop and talked to him about it. And it took us 2 or 3 months before I came back.
Okay.
So he had 2 technicians and a loop tech here when I got back. And I've been doing this it's been about 2.5 years now as just a foreman. I took a salary pay. I took a $30,000 a year cut and pay for this job. But I knew that I could get back up to a better level than that. I knew that it would happen. It just would take building it, because he'd never had anybody in this position before. Everybody was just fend for yourself. So it's been about 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years, and like March, I guess. So
okay. Did you just had and hey, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. That's really tough.
Well, thank you.
Did you just have the confidence in the people that was running the shop, or the shop itself, to be able to come back and say, I know that I can make this role work and be successful here, or what was it that made it work for you?
This shop, when I came here, because I was at my father-in-law's shop, and his lead tech needed to be fed. He needed his hours, and I struggled for hours over there as a flat rate tech. And I had never really branched out. Like, I started a small engine tech, and then I went to that shop. Actually, I mean, because I had met my wife and then found out that her dad had a shop, and I was like, well, I've always worked on cars, I'll give it a shot. And this, I got to the point where I was like, I need more hours. I need to grow, and it's really hard to grow when you're, if you don't have the work. It's not that they wouldn't give it to me. It's just, they just didn't have it. It was a smaller shop. And,
Sure.
so I was like, I need to grow. I'm young. I'm, like 20, well, no, but 27, 28 at the time, I guess, when I made the switch, and literally I prayed about it, and I said, I need to try something different. I've been at the same two shops, back and forth for 10 years almost. And so I got on, I think it was like Indeed or something like that. And this one had just popped up, and I looked at the reviews and everything, and I thought, well, I'll go talk to him. And I came in here and I met the owner, and immediately I was like, okay, this person is sincere. He's serious about what he does. He cares about his customers, and he's willing to grow. He's willing to spend the money. I'm looking around the shop and everything, and it's a whole lot better now than it was. But at the time, it was like, he's got new lifts. I'm like, wow, like that. I had never been in a shop with new lifts. He's got new lifts. He's got new jacks. He's got new air hose reels. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, all right, we're going to give this a shot. And so, it worked out pretty well for 5 years. I mean, there were problems. There's problems everywhere. I've had problems at every job I've ever had. And so when I decided to be a foreman, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go talk to him first. I'm going to give him first shot. Because I left on good terms. So I'm going to give him first shot, and we're going to see how much we can grow this place. Because the problem that we had when I was here before is that I was on flat rate, and you get to a certain level and a certain lifestyle that you're not necessarily willing to give up for bragging rights, I guess, to say, yeah, I don't know, I helped these guys or whatever. I mean, some people do it, and obviously as a teacher, you're willing to give up your career, as a technician or a flat rate tech, and I'm assuming you're paid well, but it's probably not what you could make as a flat rate tech somewhere. So
honestly, like in all reality, it's probably like a half of what you could make, and that's kind of why I do the mobile thing on the side, because it does. And this isn't like touting my skills as a technician. It's just in general, like anybody that is, that has been doing this for so long, you could make way more money being in tech than you can teaching, for sure. About the flat rate, and I don't mean to interrupt you here, but I wanted to point out, you had sent me just kind of an outline before we talked about, your feelings, when you were that flat rate tech. And I can tell you, I related so closely to the things that you were saying, how it doesn't allow you to, I don't know if it doesn't allow you to, but it doesn't promote you to take time to better yourself, as far as really figuring things out, really testing things, really diving into the why and the how. It's just, I got to get this fixed. I got to get out the door, whatever that takes. If it's a problem, ship it and get me the next gravy ticket so I can keep making flat rate.
Well, right. But now I'll tell you this.
Okay.
I even as a flat rate tech, if it took me 14 hours that day to figure out that car, I would.
Okay.
It would pay 1 hour for diag, and it's like, you want to charge more, and sometimes you can, but it's like, I'm helping this person, I'm going to figure this out, and it's going to help me in the end. I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow. And so as a flat rate tech, I spent a lot of hours. This was not a 8 to 5. It was more like, most of the time, a 6:45 to 8:45 at night position, just to do things as correctly as I could, as correctly as I as I knew how to. And I took a lot of pride in it, and pride will get you, it'll wear you out. But, you know, now that I've been through that, I see how detrimental that was to, you know, my health and my, you know, definitely my marriage, you know, my home life, you know, things where she's at home waiting on me to get home, waiting on me to cook dinner, you know, and I'm up here, you know, and it don't matter. The car's going to be here tomorrow. It's already here. It's not like they're going to come get it tonight, but, you know, it's just that it's almost like a natural high, you know, figuring things out and being the one to figure it out. And I kind of had to, you know, step away from that. I was not, I mean, yeah, I would flat rate, you know, I would run impact, you know, run ball joints on with an impact. And I really haven't had any comebacks from that. A lot of happy customers, you know, and, but, you know, for the most part, I could do it well. I was really good at writing my tickets and, making sure and doing my test drive afterwards, you know, wiping my handprints off, pulling my mat, making sure that I didn't have any comebacks, but nobody else was doing that. And so after 5 years, the business starts to slow because not everybody's happy, you know, and so that's why you know, but flat rate, yeah, there was no, like, they were like, hey, we need you to help these guys, you know. I'm like, well, how do you want me to help them? And, well, yeah, go show them how to, you know, show them what you're doing, show them how to do this, you know. I'm like, I don't think they're interested. I really don't. Like, if they are, yeah, but how am I going to be compensated? And the thing was, well, we pay you a higher flat rate. That should cover that. And I'm like, absolutely not. That's not how this works. So.
And it just takes some of that higher flat rate food off of your plate once they can do more, you know?
Right. Well, I really wanted them to do more, though. It slowed the shop down a lot. Like, it bottlenecked to me. And then what happens is you end up losing customers. And so, yeah, it's great for 2 or 3 years. Like, when I got here, they were not doing inspections. The shop I came from, my father-in-law was a stickler. I mean, his shop is really well run. I mean, probably one of the best run shops in Oklahoma City. It's an older shop, and they're kind of landlocked where they're at, and location, and I mean, but they do well. And so when I came here, I was going, okay, all right, first day, I'm like, where's your inspection sheet? And they go, well, there's a little one there on the bottom of the repair order. You know, I'm like, no. I need an inspection sheet. And they go over there and they pull open the filing cabinet, and there's like a 4-foot stack of ones that like BG was giving them. They're like the 3-page, you know, carbon copy ones. And I'm like, okay, all right, now watch this. And so they had not been inspecting cars, and they were busy. They were 2 weeks behind when I got here. And I'm like, how are you 2 weeks behind? And what it was, cars would come in, and then 2 months later they come back for something else, and 2 months later they come back for something else, and you know, and some people are okay with that. Sure. But I started inspecting the vehicles, and the service advisor that was here, he didn't know anything about cars. Like, he didn't know, he didn't care. But he was a really nice guy, and he was, you know, he would just call the customer and tell them what they need and what they didn't need. And I mean, I was killing it the first like 3 years. I mean, it was, you know, 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and just catching all these cars up, you know, and everything. And then it started to run out, you know. And when I first started, there was a guy here he'd been here for a couple months, and he said, you know, I was doing really well until you got here. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, I was getting 40 hours a week till you got here. And I said, well, you need to be inspecting the cars. And he said, no, I think you're ripping people off by doing that. That's not what they brought it in for. And I said, okay, well, you can think what you want, but, you know, I'm going to do things that until they tell me different, I'm going to do things the way I want to do it. And, yeah, he was getting 15, 20 hours a week, because, I mean, the cars were, you know, I was kind of slowing the process down a little bit because I was getting so booked up with work. And so, sure. You know, he didn't make it, but, you know, I started doing that. And I remember when I got here, there was a 76 Corvette, and I thought that was the owner's car. It was in the back collecting dust. There were parts all over it. I thought, well, that's his project car, lifelong project car. And I asked, I said, hey, whose Corvette is that? They said, that's a customer's car. And I said, how long has that been here? And they said, oh, about 18 months. And I'm like, oh, great. And then they're going to give it to me. I guarantee it. And sure enough, they did. And they roll that car up here, and they give me a 5-gallon bucket full of parts and bolts. And they said, okay, the drive shaft's all the way in the back, and the exhaust is hanging on the warehouse rack back there, and the transmission's on a pallet. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. I can't do this for flat rate. Like, there's just, how are you going to pay me on this? And so I got it done and got it running and got through it. And I was like, I can't do that again. But I remember him writing his first, because he came over to me, he gave me like an 85-hour paycheck for 2 weeks. And he's almost shaking when he's giving it to me. And he said, this is the biggest check I've ever written. And I'm like, oh, crap. Because that was like my first month here. And I'm like, well, you better have a lot more of those, because I'm not coming in here for 30 hours a week, So
Yeah.
and it just took off. Doing it that way, and of course I learned that from where I came from, So
Sure.
But
that's one of the I think one of the most interesting things that I found from going to shop to shop to shop doing a mobile thing is when you're in, one shop or one company and they do things this way, and maybe they do some things good, but maybe they do some other things not so well. You may not even realize it if you're just within that island, right? And then being able to go out and see how other people are doing the same thing. And again, maybe they're not perfect. They've got the things they don't do quite right, but there's this one thing that they do. You're like, wow, I never thought about it that way. Maybe I can adopt that. And I've been in that situation. For the first 5 years of my career, I was on this little island in a 2-bay shop, with a guy with a very narrow mindset on how things were run. It was actually the shop that I was telling you about with the fuel filter that we sold, right? And I didn't know there was anything better. I was young, but even him, I don't know that he knew that there was anything different than he could do that would actually make it more successful. But you start seeing, if you take the time or are able to go see how other people are doing it, how they're being successful, you're like, wow, okay, I can change stuff up. I can bring something else to the table here, that's going to make everybody more successful, like you're talking about. It's something that my mind was open to in the last, 5-6 years, that there's a lot more out there that I don't even know about.
Right. Yeah. You would not believe, and I know it's nationwide, but you would not believe the amount of shops that are not doing digital inspections. And I don't think it's just the technicians not wanting to do it. Everybody works a smartphone. Everybody can work a smartphone. You can work a tablet. It's not that difficult, but they always say, well, the technicians don't want to do it. And I'm going, well, you're going to have to. It's just part of it. I don't see how you're going to get around that one. I don't see it. We don't get around anything really. We're not working on carbureted cars anymore. We're not even working on OBD2 anymore. That's kind of gone out the window with the secure gateway stuff. So, we're just going to have to adapt. I've always said, it's almost like we're swimming, and trying to keep your head above water. And the moment you stop swimming, you're going under. It may not be immediate, I guess, but it's tough to keep swimming, and then it's even tougher when you're having to swim upstream and you're having to go against the problems of the shop that you work for. And so, you get out and you have to be willing to change, and that's what I wasn't when I was a flat rate tech. It's tough to. Why would I change? Why would I try and program that car when I'm making really good money? Why would I, when I go home tonight, I know what I'm doing. Tomorrow I'm going to know what I'm doing. I'm going to fix that car. It's going great, but you see it. I saw it. And I saw it coming. And because there would be certain cars that come in and I'm just like, I have no clue. And I don't, I don't have anyone to contact besides like calling Identifix. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, it's just not, it's not efficient at all, really. It's really not. And so, when I decided to become a foreman, I was like, I need to do some training. I need to grow. I can't do it. Really can't do it as a flat rate tech. I mean, you can, but I don't see how these guys do it. When you're having to worry about your next paycheck, it's just not. It couldn't be easy. And so, when I came here, I lucked out. There was a guy that was working here that took my position. Well, I mean, there was a guy in between. The guy that originally replaced me was a crook. He's not a good technician. He's a liar and a cheat. I'm not going to name him, but he's worked at almost every shop here in Oklahoma City. And I've heard all kinds of horror stories. And in fact, he's at a dealership that one of my old technicians is at, and he's screwing up over there too. But of course, nobody ever checks references. So, but anyway, they had to fire him. He broke an ear on a master cylinder on a Ram 3500 and decided it was okay to leave it. It still got the other nut holding it. And luckily, the service advisor went out there to shut the hood on that truck because the underhood light was left on and he didn't want the battery running down, and he saw it. And so he questioned him about it, and he said, "Yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine." And they're going, "All right, pack your stuff." You're gone, because you're gonna one hard break, and that's Yep. So, but the guy that replaced him was from like Pennsylvania, and so when I got here, he's like, "Oh, have you heard of Paul Danner? I've got his book. He's got his book." I'm going, "I have no clue who you're talking about." He's like, "Oh, have you heard of I went to Vision last year." I'm like, "What is Vision? What is that? What are you talking about, dude?" We go to the O'Reilly's classes and the Napa classes and stuff, and I had no clue. And he was able to open my eyes to a lot of technology and stuff that I'd never seen, and a lot of the training and a lot of the Facebook groups and stuff that he was on. He's like, "Oh, look, this is Super Mario Diagnostics," and I'm like, what are you talking about? And so unfortunately he's not working here anymore. He moved on, but he was a major help in that. And I don't know if he'll listen to this podcast or not, but I got big props for him, pushing me that direction and opening my eyes to all this stuff that I might not have ever, I try to keep up with stuff, but you never know. It's like one door opens and then like a bay door opens, and then you get, you meet 15 more people, and then you see something or you hear something and they talk about, and you're like, "Oh, okay, all right, I'll add that person, I'll add that page," and then now you're like,
Sure.
"Oh crap, now I'm running a WPS 500 in cylinder," and I would have never done that. Like, there's no way. So
No, I 100% agree. The rabbit holes that get opened up, the routes that you go down, that, like I said, if you're on an island, you don't know all these other people. I spent so much of my career that way. Like, here's my tools. Here's the way I learned to do it in tech school. I keep doing that way. And like I said, if it doesn't benefit me in my paycheck at the end of the week, send it to the dealer, right? We had that option at Firestone. I didn't realize the guys at the dealer don't have that option, but but meeting people that are out there, again, that are they're so smart, being successful at what they do, and you're like, wow, okay, let me check this out. And then, it's the next thing and the next person and the next.
Oh yeah. The last 2.5 years of my life, my brain has hurt, like bad, like I'm up at still awake at 11 o'clock, and I'm like, what the hell was he talking about? I'm going, wait a minute, oh wait, no, he's right. That sensor does work that way. I never even thought about it like that. And it's like,
sure.
And then, of course, you probably won't see another one for a year and a half. And so hopefully you retain the knowledge that you learned. But yeah, I mean, this guy, he was like, hey, I'm going to this CTI class. And I'm like, no, we didn't do CarQuest. And what's the other one that they have? I can't
Napa or something like
that. Not Napa. It's CarQuest and I can't think of the name of their other company that's here, Advance. And because we didn't sell Advance parts, so we didn't go to their classes. And he said, I'm going to go to one of these classes. He goes, Keith Perkins is going to be teaching this class. And I'm going, okay, like I have no clue what you're talking about, And so Keith was down from Tulsa, and this guy had been talking to him, and so he shows up, and so he's giving him a shop tour and everything, and brings him up to me. He's like, this is Keith Perkins. He's really good at all this stuff, and he's got a YouTube channel. And I'm like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. Anyway, get back to work. Because we got stuff to do. I don't know who this guy is. But I'm coming to the class tonight. And it's like I don't want to fluff Keith up. But it is at this point. It's almost like meeting Elvis. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And you didn't know it. And you didn't know it. And so you're just like,
Sure.
Whatever, And so I go to the class, and it was an ATIS class, and I'm going, okay, are you serious? Because a lot of times they put these classes on, and they try and sell a tool, and then it's stuff that you'll never see and you'll hardly ever do, or they'll quit making that part. And I'm just blown away because, I had actually done a radar calibration on a Ford Fusion that I put a steering rack in. Now, I put the steering rack in there, and it was a pretty new car. It was like a 2014. I put the steering rack in there and let the car go, and about 4 to 6 weeks later, she brings it back and says that the emergency braking is slamming on the brakes on its own, and this light's coming on the dash. I'm like, I don't know anything about that stuff. So I just pulled the codes and of course looked it up, and I got on my scan tool and I said, hey, I can do this function. And so I went out and did it, and I drove the car down the road, for a mile and a half, and the light went out and everything started working correctly again. And I had no clue at the time what I did. I didn't care. It fixed the car, whatever. I mean, I've never seen it on any other cars yet, at the time. Because I think that car was only about a year or two old. And he's sitting there talking about this in class, and I'm going, uh-oh. How many cars have I aligned with that system on there without having a clue, right, about it? How many cars have hit a brick in the road, and I've put suspension parts on and let it leave without ever even testing that stuff? And so I was like, okay. And so afterwards, he's like, you want to come check out the truck and check out the equipment? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna look at this stuff, And so
yeah,
that was part of this change in my mindset and this change in my life, because I've met another Oklahoman who's getting it. He's got it. He's going to pave the way for all of the Oklahoma technicians.
Sure.
And there's people out there who refuse. They don't want to put forth the effort at all. Like, it's just, no thanks. And the shops are getting held back by that. So, but yeah, I mean, that's how I met Keith Perkins. Almost made a fool of myself. Because I almost was just like, he's walking around the shop and everything. Like, first of all, we're not supposed to have people out here in the shop. I don't know who this guy is. Pack your stuff, buddy. You need to leave. We got work to do.
Yeah. Right.
So,
I've had that same experience with, certain people, or I meet them and I didn't realize, like, what they do or what they bring to the industry. Right. And then later to find out, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, not that it should really matter. Like, I guess I should interact with everybody the same and treat everybody the same, but like, I don't know, when somebody has accomplished so much of what I dedicate my life to, it definitely changes the way that I feel about them and interact with them. And yeah, when you when you don't even realize it, you're like, oh man, that was blankety blank. Like, oh gosh, I wish would have asked him these questions or whatever. And yeah, Keith's knocking it out of the park. He's like you said, he's a pioneer for a lot of different stuff. And he does so much and he does it all so well. Right. He's got his training website and his mobile business. I just had an episode of him on Monday, talking about all the stuff that he's running and how it's just blowing up, out where he's at in Tulsa. It's,
Right.
yeah. Super cool guy. And that's the other thing. Really nice guy, willing to share, willing to help, teach, all that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, that's we need people like that, right, to inspire other people to be their best selves. And if we can all do that, like you say, everybody in Oklahoma or everybody everywhere, right? We have those people up here too. Like, let's inspire everybody to be better, and then everything in the industry for all of us is better at that point, you know?
Right. Yeah, because I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think it will take. I think it will take a shop getting sued before people get serious about doing ATIS calibrations. I mean, that's what it's going to take. It's going to have to, because I mean so when I went to that class, you know, I thought about it, and then I started reading, you know, and watching training classes, and I said, you know what, they're going to make this mandatory. They're going to make this mandatory. I guarantee it, because something like that, you know, if the politicians think it's a good idea and they like it, then, well, they'll just sign it into law, and,
Sure.
you know, and they did. So, at least some form of it anyway on the car. I don't know about like total control, like steering control and stuff like that, but probably at least emergency braking. So, it was one of those nights where I'm like laying in bed at like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm reading posts on diag.net, and I'm watching videos, watching like the you know, David Friend stuff, or reading his posts, and then you know, there's another guy that does training on that stuff. I can't think of his name, but you know, watching videos and watching all the stuff, and I went, you know what, we need to do that. We need to break into that. And I knew Keith was already doing it in Tulsa, and I started Googling, and you know, and seeing if there's anybody in Oklahoma City who does it, and you know, I guess Elite or Elite Tech or whoever, they probably somewhat do it. I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how accurate they are on stuff. So, but I said, you know what, we're doing it, or I'm doing it. Either way. And so I came and I talked to my boss, and I'm kind of a pushy person, when I believe I'm right.
Okay.
And so, you know, I just said, hey, you know, I think we need to be doing this. I think we need to, you know, branch out and start doing this. And, you know, he's kind of like, well, you know, it's going to cost, you know, money, and yeah, right now it's costing us money. But I just told him, I said, well, I want to do this. And I've got Keith, you know, and I've got a few other people from Facebook and stuff. And so I have the backing, and I think we can do it. And I think we can branch out and kind of pave the way to, you know, doing these calibrations. Because I think the glass shops probably do the cameras and stuff, but they're probably, you know, I don't know how well they are at it. So I pretty much told him, I was like, you're going to do this, you know, here at the shop, or I'm going to go get a loan and I'm going to rent a spot, and I'm going to start doing these at night, because I don't want to miss the boat. I don't want to be behind on this. It's not like I want to be the first person so that we can be the only shop, because it's not going to be that way. Everybody's going to have to do it. Yeah, almost every shop is going to have to do it in some form. And, you know, he wasn't too happy with me at that point, but it's like, I won't steer you wrong. At least I don't think, I hope not, you know. And so he thought about it, and he said, okay, I'll send you to the training. And I never got to go. I was going to go to David Friend's training, and he actually got in a really bad car accident like a week or two before the class, and then COVID hit. So I am still not formally trained. I just had to just do it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's gonna take, because we're sending out a salesman, one of our advisors, we're sending him out every day, and he's going from shop to shop, body shops and automotive shops and places like that, and glass shops, and saying, hey, we do this stuff. And they're like, we have no clue what you're talking about. And, he's going,
Sure.
okay, well, and we have a flyer made up and stuff. And, some of the body shops are like, oh yeah, we do your own, or we do our own, and he's looking at the shop and he's going, no, you don't. If you are, you're not doing it correctly, because the place is there's metal hanging everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's just there's no way. I don't think they realize. I think like when we were calling dealerships to see what they were charging for it, and they're like, oh yeah, we just do that as part of the alignment. We're going, no, not resetting steering angle sensor. You're misunderstanding. This is for the radar and the camera. And they're like, I don't know, we'll call you back. And they call us back and like $650. Like, okay, so we're not out of line on our pricing then. But yeah, I mean, they did the shops for more, and I haven't gone out. I don't want to go out and do sales and stuff. So maybe I should be the one there to help explain it. But he's just like, these people most of them they don't know. And I'm going, because what's going to end up happening is somebody is going to, pull a bumper off and put a condenser in a car and put the radar back on crooked, and they don't know what it is. They think it's a temperature sensor or something. Who knows? Just plug it back in, and someone's going to get in a wreck. And now the lawyers have got their beacons set on this, and that's what it's going to take. And hopefully it's not us. Hopefully we survive it. So. But,
do you mind me asking, and I can edit this out if need be, what ADAS equipment are you guys using?
Oh, we have the Autel.
Okay.
We bought Napa really wanted to sell the one they had, because nobody was buying it, and so we just kind of held out on them, and they came at us with a really good deal, like 25% off or something. It was like, okay. And
nice.
So yeah, we pulled the trigger on that. So yeah, I'm using the Autel equipment, and reason why is I ask around, and pretty sure that's what Keith's using, or some of it, and even David Friend has said, I use everything. It's just whatever. If it works, it works. That's all you need to know, is that you go out, the system is working like it's supposed to, and you can prove that. That's all that matters, because you can still screw it up with factory stuff. I could see you easily screwing it up with factory stuff. So
sure.
So yeah, that's what we bought, and then we actually rented because we're in kind of it's an industrial building, almost like a strip mall, but it's just all like warehouse type. It's a complex or whatever, and we actually ended up renting a spot. Unfortunately, it's all the way down on the other end, and it's like 200 yards down the way. But we rented a spot to do them in, so that we're not having cars come across and then parts delivery drivers walking through carrying parts, and it's our own station, I guess, where we do that at. And then we can leave the cars in there too if we have to overnight. You don't have to move them and reset them back up and stuff. So, because that takes a lot of time sometimes to get them set up correctly, and so you don't want to have to redo that again. But so we invested the money, and I invested the time. I told him that I would invest the time, and I'll train somebody up, so that's not just me. But right now, what I'm waiting on right now, it is just me, because of the legalities and everything. You got to be careful. I've created my own 16-step checklist process that I go through. I've got my own, I've got it on. It's just on Google or whatever, where we save our files and stuff. But I save the repair order and all the pictures and all the information. And there's a guide that the service advisors are supposed to use, which sometimes they don't, but it's got to come in with a full tank of gas. It's got to be put together. I don't want a car in here without body panels on it, because they may have to pull the bumper back off to put the inner fender liner back in or something. So if it's coming from a body shop, it needs to be completed. This needs to be the last step. And so I've got all that stuff set in place, but my thing is I need my technicians to become ASE certified. I'm the only one right now. Besides, I do have a tech who's GM certified or AC Delco certified, but The reason why I think, the reason why I won't train somebody else right now to do it is, first of all, I'm still learning. And so it would be really difficult to train them on something that I don't know. And then on top of that, it would look really bad in court if you've got your youngest, greenest technician doing something as important as this. And I have a feeling that a lot of shops, the lead tech's going to go, hell no, I'm not doing that. And it's going to get passed down to the guy that it may not be that he doesn't care. It just may be a matter of he's, not proficient in it, and he doesn't have anybody to ask because the lead tech refuses to do it. And so if that went to court, they could say, hey, why didn't you have your best guy do this if it's that important? So right now, I am the only one. And we don't get a whole lot. I think we started in March, and I think I've done 25, So people when they call for, an alignment, and we've got a partnership with Discount Tire, and they send alignments to us, we ask them, hey, that's a 2018. Does this car have adaptive cruise control? Does it have lane departure? And they go, oh yeah. I go, okay, well, it's going to be, and I just throwing out a price, but it's probably pretty close to what we charge, but it's going to be, $349. That includes the alignment and the calibration. And that's a good deal, Yeah. And they go, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, I want to get that done. And they make the appointment, and then they never show up. So very rarely do they make an appointment and show up, because they usually go talk to somebody and they say, holy crap, I got my alignment done for $69, and it comes with a lifetime warranty, And so we kind of have to just, brush that off and do our thing. And so after taking all the classes and everything, we refuse to do an alignment on a car that has any ATIS equipment on it. If they don't want to do the calibration, we just refuse to do it. We lose the business.
Okay.
So it's not hurting us, alignments, what are we going to get? $89, and they may never come back, so,
right.
It's just whatever. But so we're going to win on the ones that we can win on, and then we'll lose on the ones that we're going to lose on anyway. And it's going to come twofold. We'll gain.
You'll eventually be the guys that do that everybody starts calling, whether there's just more and more issues with these systems, or like you say, there's more legality and stuff like that around this, that all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, we need to address this. Who does this around here? Oh yeah, that's right. These guys over here. Cause right now they're calling around to everybody and getting the estimate. Yeah, we'll do that alignment, $100, right. No problem.
Yeah, you don't have to do that stuff.
Yeah, right. There's no codes on, right? That's fine. We'll go down the road. So it's very smart. There's a lot of foresight there to be ahead of the curve, and obviously an investment, right? There's a chance that doesn't pan out. And I think the alignment kit, or the ADAS kit from Mattel, I think I looked at it a while back, is, $20,000 or whatever. That's a lot of money to dump on something. Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't get that back. That's a risk, but I think you're on the right track. You got the right idea there, that it's going to be more necessary than people think it is, or that a lot of shops think it is, as time progresses. Give it 10 years.
Right.
And maybe there's a lot of passive calibrations where the car's doing themselves, but that's not all of them. And I've asked a lot of people that know more about this than me, and I'm like, what do you think? They're like, it's a combination. Mm-hmm. You're going to need targets. You're going to need the equipment. You're going to need to know how to do this. And then there'll be some passive ones too, but the active ones are not going away, and you got to be proficient, skilled, and tooled up in order to do that stuff.
Right. And they, a lot of guys have told me, oh, well, they're going to go all dynamic, eventually anyway. And I'm like, are they? Have you tried to do one in the rain yet? And they're like, what? I'm like, have you even done one yet? Because you can't do it in the rain. That's another thing that's on our list. They tell the customer, okay, if weather is bad, we may not be able to do it that day. We may have to reschedule. They're getting better. But I've read somewhere that they were able to do a new Ford Ranger in the snow, like in Michigan or somewhere, and it took them like 3 hours.
Okay. Jeez.
Like, I don't have time for that. Like,
it's dynamic and static. You can tell how much I know about ADAS. I keep using the wrong terms when I'm talking to people, but dynamic and static, right?
Right.
Okay.
Dynamic and static. Yeah. And I've done 24 on the books. I've done a bunch off the books, on, good customers who allow us to, test out their vehicles and stuff. And we've got to learn somehow. And some of them are static and then dynamic. And those are the ones that are tricky, because that's the one where the Autel tells you to set the target. It's like a resized target. They tell you to set the target at this certain height, like 1152 millimeters or something. So you're like, okay. But that was for like a car. Okay, well, if you're calibrating an SUV, it's got to be set higher. So it'll take on the static just fine. And then you roll into your dynamic and you think you're going to go like a mile or two and it's done. I drove one car. I was up here till like 9 o'clock that night. I drove that car like an hour and a half. I had to put more fuel in it. And I was like, something's not right. This is not, and I go back and it would take the static like immediately. I'm like, okay, so I get online and they're like, oh, no. You've got to set it up like another 50 millimeters for this. And then if it's a smaller car, like an Acura RL or something, then it needs to be down. So there's actually 3 different settings that it could be at. And it's not in the scan tool yet. They're supposed to update and have it ask you. So you can run into problems, and thank God it didn't take after 45 minutes of driving, because it wouldn't be right. It would be incorrect. So, at least they had the foresight, or maybe they didn't. Maybe it just worked out that way that it doesn't take. But hopefully the people who designed it, said, hey, we need this to be able to be in these parameters, and it's got a little bit of leeway. But if it's not in its parameters, then it's not going to take. So I'm assuming that's how they set it up. But investment wise, lots of hours of training, because all I can do is training videos and podcasts. I can read on diag.net. I can get on the ADAS calibration forums on Facebook, and that's it. I don't have anybody to ask besides Keith, and Keith is busy. So,
sure.
I have his personal, cell phone number and Facebook or whatever, and I can contact him, but I really try not to. So, obviously if I run into an issue, it might take him a day or two, but he'll get back with me. So, but yeah, I never thought that would be what I would be doing. I just never,
right.
It just never occurred to me. Like, it was like, oh, okay, well, this stuff came out, and
well, where'd you say you started with small engines? Yeah,
I actually so I didn't want to be in the automotive class. In fact, we have a really good instructor here. He's like, he's pretty decorated. But I didn't want to be in automotive. I mean, my grandfather was he was a telephone man, but he always worked on cars, and he taught me as much as he could on, because so with telephones, it's all electric. So he knew all about, ohms and amps and, all these, how electricity worked and how it flowed. And so I had some pretty good understanding of that. And he was old school. He knew how to fix things without having a book, without being able to call somebody and ask, or, just kind of figure out how the system worked, and he could fix it. I mean, the guy could fix anything. So, so I already had that basic learning and stuff. And, the automotive class, a lot of the guys got stuck crushing oil filters, and I probably would have cut up too much in class, and he probably wouldn't have liked me, So I was like, well, yeah. Me and my friend, we were like, hey, we want to work on like dirt bikes and, gas powered scooters and crap like that. So we're just going to take this small engine class. And so the teacher was kind of like, it was like, he retired the year after I graduated. Like, he was done. The guy was wore out, and he was older, and he was very, if you didn't care, he didn't care. So he focused on me and the other kid in class and made sure that we were learning, and the other kids that he just knew they were there as a elective or whatever, and so he didn't bother with them. But so small engines, he made sure we learned the 4-stroke and 2-stroke combustion cycle. In fact, we had to get through that part of the class before we were allowed to touch anything. Because he said on these, if you know that, and you know how the 2-stroke cycle happens and how the 4-stroke cycle happens, you can fix this equipment. And so that's what we learned. And so, now after taking Brandon Steckler's class, everything is like, okay, all right, now it really all makes sense, what he was talking about when I was 16 years old or 17 years old. So, but yeah, so that was 2003 and 2004. And so part of our class was learning how to use microfiche. We had to be efficient or proficient in microfiche and looking up parts on that. And, I was just like, I mean, I didn't really use the internet a whole lot. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And so, he got me a job at a local small engine shop, and you had in the office in there was a big box of microfiche cards from all the brands, and every month or every 6 months or whatever, they'd send you new ones, so you would go through and update, your parts list and everything like that. And you would use the microfiche to look up your part numbers and wiring diagrams and stuff like that. So I'm not that old. I mean, I think you and I are probably the same age. But I got in, learning how to do things the difficult way. And, I thought I was all right. I drove old cars. Everything I had was carbureted. And so small engines made sense because cars were all fuel injected. And so it was like, I don't work on fuel injection, so I'll work on carburetors all day. And, my first 2 weeks at this shop after school ended, the other guy that was there quit. And if you think there's a shortage of auto mechanics, small engine mechanics has had a shortage since the early 2000s. A lot of the programs got canceled, and people weren't taking the classes, and they started building throwaway equipment, so it wasn't worth fixing. And you're not going to spend a whole lot of money on a $125 weed eater when you can just go buy another $125 weed eater. So
right.
So it was difficult. And the owner of the place, him and his wife, they were really good at that stuff. He'd been doing it, since he got out of high school. And so, they helped me along and everything. But, he had opened a speed shop next door. And so he was working on that and working over there all the time. Do you watch Street Outlaws? Have you seen that show? You follow any of that?
I can't say that I've seen that.
Okay, well, I mean, for the listeners, Farm Truck and Asian were always hanging out over at the speed shop all the time. I didn't know it. They were just guys that hung out, and then Daddy Dave, Dave Comstock, he actually worked with me for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, something like that, at the lawnmower shop, because they were really good friends. And I didn't know at the time, I was just like, whatever, and then the TV show comes out and everybody's like, oh man, have you seen this guy or heard these people? I'm like, well, I know all those people. Like another time where you're like, you meet somebody in passing, and you're like, oh yeah. And so, yeah, it was cool. I mean, he had a race car, and, I had a Chevelle, and, so we got along pretty well. But that job, and I've seen guys on Facebook make fun of the lawnmower techs, like, oh, if you can't make it here, just go be a mower tech. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Maybe there is now. There was no Identifix. There was no All Data. If you were lucky, you might have got a PartSmart disc to be able to look up parts on a computer, but otherwise, and you're on your own unless you know somebody to call, and you're probably really under-equipped as far as tooling goes. And there's, a lift, like that's back then was really unheard of. I'm sure now it's gotten better, but
yeah.
And then the equipment changes every year. The brands keep getting bought, and they just change things, and then emissions gets involved, and they really screw things up for you. So
yeah,
I thought, I'm gonna give automotive a shot. I mean, they've got the money, so.
Yep.
But.
And here you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thank you for sharing your story and advice for everybody. And I find that ADAS stuff really interesting too. I took a class at ASTE on it, and every time I do, I'm like, I actually need to do some of this stuff because I'm learning about it, but it's not the same if you're not actually physically on the car going through it. But
Right.
I don't know. Someday I'll get involved.
Yeah. I think that's not going to be the end of it. I think it's going to be terribly hard for us in the next 5 to 10 years. Like, it's just, but it's an opportunity. You have to keep looking at it as an opportunity. That's all. You just keep your sights set on that, no matter how hard it is. You'll get through it. I mean, this isn't that bad. Come on, people survived World War II. Like, it's not that bad.
Right. Yeah, we got life easy.
Yeah, this is light work compared to, what a lot of people have experienced. So, we just...
The problems a lot of people think are problems are not that bad.
Right, yeah. I mean, hopefully for most people, you have it better now than you did when you first started. I really hope that for people, because if you don't, you need to leave the shop you're at. You need to get out there. And even if you're not good, if you're willing to be good, hit one of us up. We'll get you connected. We'll get you, involved with the right training and the right people, and the camaraderie will happen no matter what. And we are not an exclusive group. We'll take on anybody. I mean, but I can't speak for some of the older guys, but yeah, I mean, things are changing. And the one thing I wanted to point out is that since I've been back, we abolished our lube tech position. We no longer have a lube tech. I'm sure the other two techs are not too happy about that, because now we're sharing tire work and oil changes and wader alignments and stuff like that. But I saw it happening. The last couple lube techs I had, they weren't going to make it anyway, so we were just sticking them with oil changes. And then you get that final loose drain plug that costs you a motor, and it's like, all right, if you're not into cars, that's one of the things. Like, when you get interviewed here, we go out and look at your car. Like, you may not know it, but we're looking at your car. I mean, I have driven by technicians' houses. I have. I'm not ashamed to say that. I have driven by before we hired him and go, okay, his yard's not mowed and his car's dirty and gross. This probably isn't. And maybe you can't really judge somebody by that, but I've been right so far. So, but we got rid of our lube tech position because the guy that I have here now, I saw that, and the last one too, the GM tech, we moved him up. Within a year, we moved him into a full technician position. He didn't stay in the lube tech position, but I saw in this guy his attention to detail on his personal vehicle, his attention to detail at his house, and he just was bright. Like he's gonna get this, and so I've been talking to the owner and everything, and saying, hey, we need to move him up. And he's got a lot on his plate, and he missed giving this technician his 1-year review, and he was expecting a pay raise and an advancement to be a full tech. And it had been like a month and a half, and he was ready to leave. He was looking, because he's gained quite a bit of knowledge from us, and he can go make good money. And so I came in, and it was a Friday, and I told the boss, before you do anything else today, you're going to go give him his review. We're we're not losing this technician. We're not going to. And so he did. And he actually, I think he gave him retro pay, for
Nice.
back when he was supposed to have gotten his raise. And when I did that, I wrote his pay plan. And so he gets, actually everybody now does, but I put him on a guarantee every week, and then he gets a certain amount per flat rate hour. And then it, he gets a bonus at 40 hours and a bonus at, 45 hours or something. It's like just a couple more dollars an hour on the flat rate side. So, because I told him, I said, I'm going to put you on this. I'm not going to put you on straight flat rate because I don't want you to starve, because you might starve. And then I put the other tech on that, the other junior tech. And then now the guy who's been here for 3 or 4 years, who's been a tech for almost 10 years, he is now on that same style of pay plan. So, it's almost more like teamwork now, because you're not like, I'm not getting paid right now. No, you're getting paid. Everybody's getting paid. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to do a lube tech anymore, as far as I know. I mean, because realistically, if someone just wants to be a lube tech, it's probably that they can't make it as a technician, or they don't want to. And
Or
pretty
they're just
much,
young, right?
well, but pretty much if you're not willing to grow here, then, we don't really need
Yeah.
somebody like that. I don't need somebody who's
Sure.
can't, because I want to take a day off. I can take a vacation, take a vacation. And so, but this guy in the last like 3 months has just been knocking it out of the park, and he's young, like
Nice.
23 years old. And so what we did for him is, he didn't have a whole lot of tools. He was using the shop tools that we had, the little toolbox. We gave him a $5,000 loan to go buy some tools.
Awesome.
Within a couple weeks, we found a 2-bay nice box full of tools he had 7,000 on it, and he talked him down to like 5,500. So he didn't have to out of pocket much. He was going to go get it, and then he got COVID. So it was in Arkansas, so it was about 4 hours away. So my wife and I loaded up, truck and trailer, and went and got it for him. And so, we're willing to do that, because we've been without a technician. It was just me and a lube tech for like a year and a half, and that was terrible. So
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be there again.
Oh,
So-
no doubt.
So if there's shops out there listening, be willing to do that for people. And it's not just a gimmick to get them to stay. If he doesn't stay, he doesn't stay. Even if he goes out and leaves, this is such a good place. What usually ends up happening is they come back. So that's happened multiple times now. So
Yeah, sometimes they have to see what's on the other side of the fence. The grass looks a little greener, but you get over, you're like, oh, okay, this ain't so great.
well, yeah, they usually entice them with a really high flat rate hour, and then they get there and they don't have any work, or they don't give them the work because they don't want to pay them. They give the work to the the lackey, and so they learn real quick. In fact, one guy that left here, he got a really good offer at a shop like maybe a mile and a half away, I guess, and that's the one that left us. We didn't have anybody for about a year and a half. We couldn't find anybody, and when he came back, like I told the owner, I said, you need to call him, because I don't think things are going real well over there. You need to call him and see if he wants to come back. And he's like, you serious? You think he will? I'm like, yeah. So he comes back. I think he's like, when he came back, he's like 2 months behind on his mortgage. And so,
Jeez.
the owner here actually paid his mortgage up to get him back here, and said, I'll pay your mortgage up and get you back. So we have an exception here, where we work at. I doubt it's this good at a lot of places, and I complain about a lot of things, but
I would guess that you're right on with that. So that's good, though. Just again, for anybody listening to hear that there are places like that out there, right? Because it's probably not the only place where there's somebody like that or a company like that. So if you're not happy and things are not great where you're at, take a look around, see what else is out there. It's definitely worth your time, because you might find something
right.
way better.
Right. And you never know who that will be. And if you go to those training events, you may meet people maybe from out of state, maybe even from the town you're in, you never know.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, get out there and do it, so, and obviously, like, I had it really well. Me and the other tech, I mean, I met you at AST.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my first time there. The other guy that was with me, we were sent to that, all expenses paid. The only thing we paid for is we paid for our ticket to training.
Okay.
But the plane ticket was paid, the hotel was paid, all the food was paid, and then we got paid our paychecks for that week. So we were paid our full paycheck. And I'm sure, like, looking at it on paper, it looks really bad. Like, as an owner, you're like, crap, but I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
that guy has come back. He now owns a scope. He went out and bought a scope. He took a scope class from Garage Gurus or someone like that. So now he owns a scope, and now he's, trying to get better and trying to learn, So, and that was his first time at a major training event like that. So, if you're, if your guys are asking, make the sacrifice, make the sacrifice, do it, because they'll stay. If you're worried about them leaving, they'll stay, because they're not going to give that up,
Yeah.
So,
right. For sure. All right, man. I think that is a great way to wrap this up. I want to thank you for spending the time tonight and sharing everything that you have. I really appreciate it. And I think there's a number of people who probably get something valuable out of that too.
I hope so. I really do. And thank you for giving me a microphone, to voice my opinion and everything. I listened to one of your podcasts that had Matt Fonslow and Matt Skundrich and just recently, and they said, we need somebody on here, because they're like, we go to all the training, people are probably tired of hearing it, we go to all this stuff, we go to everything, we watch everything, we need somebody who's not necessarily doing that. And that's me. I mean, I'm doing it now, but it's all fairly new to me. So this is, somebody who has gained in the last couple of years from this. So,
Okay, that's going to do it for today's episode. I want to give Jeff another big thank you for joining me on the show, spending some time to talk to me. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Hopefully you did as well. Hopefully you got something out of that. Also want to thank everyone for listening to the show and all the feedback I've been getting. As always, really appreciate it. So keep it up, keep it coming. I'll get back to as many people as I can. But with that out of the way, let's all get out there and start fixing the world one car at a time.